Today I'm going to be giving a tour of models in Eco Risk Projector. So you're going to want to start by opening an existing model or creating a new one. So new model. Now you're greeted with this first general page, I suppose, where you can give it a name. So we might go ahead and call this one a test model, and we can give it authors. So, if you have the user, so for example, here you see your name. The user who's actually created the model in the Explorer is noted as the author. So here, I am the author. However, if there's many people who are contributed to the specific, the parameters you've come up with and the use of this model, you can list them all here. So that way you can still capture everyone that's involved. Description, assessment endpoint, measurement endpoint, caveats, and then also attachments can all be provided and uploaded. And these are saved on the model. Anyone can view them. So you can keep all the relevant supporting documentation together in one place. So then you're going to want to go through the model settings, and this is where you can select from the 30 and ever growing list of models available. So in this case, we'll start with Embassus. So this is a modeling. This is a species specific model looking at the daily success of the Embassus glassfish. So, we select it, we get our parameters, our assessment. I'll just leave these all on the defaults. For more information about how the parameters work and how the assessment works and defaults and location specific settings, we have videos and all those things. But at a high level, every model has individual and unique parameters. So if we look at Australian bass, we've got completely different parameters. These are based on the actual model and what's happening and how it works, and what parameters we need to drive the computational process. So in the case of Embassus glassfish, we've got some low flow requirement, we've got some breeding season requirement, and then we've got some life stages criteria, egg and larvae requirements. So this will be different for every single model. And when you select it, so you get the parameters come up with defaults. So every model has default parameters, which are just sort of good starting points. For example, just use median flow. However, you might choose in your specific case to say, no, I want to use an actual flow threshold and I know what that is, and that's going to be 1,000 megaliters. So that is the parameters. Assessment is a way of taking the model results, which are always basically different. It might be a daily success, it might be a daily growth, it might be a yearly growth, it might be, many different things, and being able to put them together and look at, a yearly value, a temporal threshold of concern value, and then a spatial value for the result. And this is for explore purposes. And that, again, almost every model has every model that has an assessment section. Models that have very unique result type, for example, Colwell's index, which returns basically a table of the classes and such. Like, it's just not relevant to have assessment. You can visualize that, but for anything that has sort of time series results where we can somehow convert from whatever it might be into a yearly, temporal, and spatial result, we'll have an assessment section with these same defaults. So on Embassus, we're saying basically, because it's a daily binary result, so every day we had success or not, we're saying, well, we need to get one success in a year to have a yearly success. So just as long as we have a single success, that's good. And then we're saying, okay, well, temporally, again, we just want one success every year. So we don't really care about threshold of concern. This is effectively just nullifying the idea of temporal, and we're just mapping directly from yearly to temporal. And then spatial, we're saying, well, if we have 50% or more simultaneous failures, so 50% or more of our locations, which we've set up in our system, fell in the same year, well, that's a high risk here. And then low is less than 20%, and moderate is in between. And then once we've got this all set up, we're going to move on to our location, where we can select a system from all the different systems that we have in our group. So you could have as many systems as you want. And the general idea is that you'll have some individual points of truth that are kept up to date and that you can run many different models on, and that the data is good. So here I'll just go ahead and select this 10-year demo system. So once I selected a system, it comes up with the location of that system. So if I'll bring up the system just to show, but you can see it's pretty simple. We've got one scenario and we've got 2 nodes. Now, actually, looking at this won't be enough. So every model has different data requirements. for Ambassadors, we need more than just flow. So this would give an error if I try and run it, because node 2 has no flow, has only flow, doesn't have other required. So for example, I'll go and I'll select the Mary River system here, just as a more broad example, that if I go and have a look, we can see that we have plenty of data here. We have everything we need. So cool. So let's just run it on. Well, we'll start by running it on all locations, and then we'll go ahead and we'll run it for both scenarios as well. And this will give us a good explore page to look at. So I'll be back once this is completed running. So whilst this model is running, I'm actually going to show some other things. Oh, there we go, it's completed. All right, well, we'll have a look at the results then. But yeah, while something is running, you can navigate away, you can create new models, you can run other models, you can do anything. You're not locked to this screen whilst you wait. But we'll have a look at the results here before we move on. So if I click on the Explore tab, we have Summary, Opportunities, and Downloads. So we have, for a detailed overview of this page, there's a Explore page specific video, but just at a higher level. So this summary page is trying to look at basically overall change. So at the top, we have this table, and this is showing the % change from our baseline scenario. So we can change it, but pre-development is the default scenario on this system. So that's what's selected as the baseline by default. And we can see that our FE, so full entitlement scenario here, has got 9.1% less low risk years, and then 3.1% more moderate and 6.1% more high. So from pre-development to full entitlement, we're basically, getting more simultaneous failures, more failures in general. We can then look at that split. So yeah, you can see pre-development, we had 88% low, and 7.6% moderate, 3.8% high. And then for full entitlement, it's less. And then scrolling down, we have that same thing, but at each specific node. So we can see at this node, it's actually the same, but here we've got, less success and more failure in full entitlement, and same thing down here as well, less success and more failure. So then if you have many scenarios, you might want to go through and select things. So here I can go, don't show me full entitlement. In this case, obviously we only have 2, so it's probably no reason you might do that, but if you had many scenarios, it's useful to select down to just what you want to see. Then if I go into opportunities, this is basically showing across time. So again, our scenarios, this is the time period of our result. So we have this run was, it took about a minute to run, but it was, 130 years at 3 nodes or 3 locations, across 2 scenarios. So that's, 6 sets of analysis at 140 years each. And this, so this is that period. And you can see throughout time for pre-development and full entitlement, the risks. So in this year, high risk. For this block here, it was all low risk. And you can, so you can see what's happening through time, so you can see this is the basically pre-development, it's our baseline, and then we're seeing we're having more moderate risk years. This moderate risk year is actually high risk year. You can just see how your new water use scenario is going to affect the success. And then we can see that same thing but over every site. So if you remember back on the last page, we saw that this site actually has no change between full entitlement and pre-development. So you can see that again here, it's the same failures at the same times. But yeah, for these other locations, we've got more failures, and you can see where that is. And this is basically showing the temporal results. So, in 1934, at this node or at this location, in pre-development we had a failure temporally, and in full entitlement we had a failure temporally. And if you recall, we set temporal to be just a direct mapping of yearly. So yeah, we just had a yearly failure. If we were to say, actually we only need 1 in 2 years to be successful, well, we would see this be different, because it would become like we had success on either side, so that would be fine. We would have had success 1 in 2 years, and this would be cool. Whereas over here would still have a failure in this year, because 2 years in a row were not good. So then finally we have downloads. So we have a whole bunch of different download combinations. You've got daily, so different models will have different downloads because they have different results. Everything will always have a temporal and a spatial. In this case, the model produces daily intermediate results, and then we have that aggregated to yearly, aggregated to temporal, and aggregated to spatial. And you can download them individually. You can download everything for a scenario, or you can download everything all together. We have a specific video on downloads, so if you want more information on the download formats and stuff, I'd have a look there for the technical details. But yeah, I think that gives a good overview of the model. Something good to note here is that if I was to come up here and change this, so now my parameters are changed, I can still view my results, but we're going to get this notification, hey, the selected scenarios are outdated. Well, they're also, they're all outdated because I've changed the model, but yeah, so all of my scenarios are outdated, and I can choose to rerun, and it tells me, yep, both full pre-development and full entitlement have issues. The scenarios has been edited. The reason both of these have an issue is because I've actually changed the model itself, which applies to all scenarios. If I went and changed the data in just one scenario, it would only, it would only be that scenario that has been changed. And this is just so that you know, basically, hey, like these results don't necessarily reflect the current settings. For example, if I run this again, it would be a very different result, or potentially a very different result depending on what the medium flow is and how close it is to 1,000. So yeah, we've got version control, and you can see what's, if something's potentially out of date and if you should run it again. Now, if I was to select a different plugin, let's go ahead and select, how about this one, spell analysis. So this is a generalized plugin. You can choose which data type. So on this system, I think I have pretty much every data type, but I'll go with the flow. And then, we've got parameters here. For details on every plugin's specific, every model's specific parameters, there is documentation on the website. So check that out if you want to know basically the actual process and what these all do. But in this case, we've got our parameters. We've got, there you go, it produces an annual value based on the what you select. So in this case, the mean magnitude of peaks. I might actually change that to count. So the number of spells we find in a year. So, so to say a year is successful, we need to have, let's say, greater than or equal to 3 spells in the year. Oh, no, we'll say two spells in the year. Okay, so if I just leave it on, I'll put this on, the Mary River. So this is a decently large scenario, and I can hit run on that. And as I mentioned before, so this starts running. There's no reason I can't, come back here, say, all right, this is my demo model. Cool. I can leave. That's there. That's still running. All good. I can, make a new model, make whatever, do whatever I need, and it will run in the background. No problems. Not going to cause any issues or, fail because I've left the page. So with that in mind, I'll go back. There we go, it's completed. And then we can look at our results. So we've got, in this case, full entitlement, pre-development. Basically, we got just slightly more high risk in full entitlement. If we go on to opportunities, we can see through time where we've had risk. And so this, remember, is based on, I set in a specific model the count. So we needed at least 2 spells in a year for it to be successful. So if we look at this, like every year here, so this year didn't have 2 spells, this year did, this year didn't, or these 2 years didn't, etc. And you can then download specifically. So for example, in this case, if I went, I can download individual results. I think that is a good overview of models. There's lots of specific details and specific details within individual plugins. So as I mentioned, there's other videos on specific components, and there's documentation for every plugin, which is definitely good to have a look at if you want to know more about any of those more detailed topics.